what you believe you can achieve and accomplish comes from your mindset. You can absolutely build something from nothing, and don't put a ceiling on things that you can't achieve.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks Podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you guys about Desert Fox Golf. I've recently partnered up with them, and they have some awesome products that you definitely want to check out. They have something called the Phone Caddy, which is the best phone holder in golf. It comes in many different colors, and they even have ones with funny sayings on it, like, I work to support my golf habit, and it takes a lot of balls to play like me. If you are like me and like to use a golf app while you're playing, then this is the thing for you, because it holds your phone in a convenient location right on the golf cart. They even have a cigar holder attachment for it. One of my favorite things is their drink aid tumblers. They have these awesome 17-ounce stainless tumblers with a screw-on lid to hold your favorite beverage while playing around a golf. They have different versions, from the classic swing aid to nurse aid, hunting aid, fishing aid, and my personal favorite design, the Patriot Aid tumbler. Head over to desertfoxgolf.com and use the promo code Roughnecks for 10% off your order. But let's get into today's guest. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. Joining me this week is a voice you may have not heard yet, but probably know of if you listen to our Friday episodes of Reno's Rant. But without further ado, Brittnee, welcome to the Roughnecks Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you are the counterpart of our Friday host, Reno, who you are his wife, and you guys are both definitely into the fitness and everything. So and you're getting ready to do some things. So I wanted to get you on here before you do what you're gonna do, which we'll talk about later. But I'm glad that we're finally able to get both halves of Reno and Brittnee on.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
I like to kick off every episode by allowing the guests to kind of give a background on themselves. So tell the Roughnecks listeners who you are.
Yeah, so I am Brittnee. I am 27. I actually grew up in Pataskala and went to Watkins with Cole and my husband, Reno. That's how Reno and I met. We have 3 kids. We have Rowan, who is 6, and then our 2 daughters, who are 3 and 2. So we stay pretty busy. I went to college here in Columbus for surgical technology, and I've been a surgical technologist ever since, working with Ohio Health. And as of this year, I actually stepped down from that and leaned more into our business and just being able to stay home with the kids and not have the burden of, doing that as well. But I grew up playing soccer most of my life since I was 4. And I think soccer is kind of what fueled my passion for fitness as well. So, yeah.
That's what I was going to ask, is kind of how that fitness journey started. Obviously, like playing sports, we played sports in high school, so that helps it. But kind of how did it continue past, high school? Because a lot of people fall off after, they're done with sports and those kind of things. So kind of how did that fitness journey continue even after high school?
Right. So I think a lot of my fitness journey, obviously with playing in soccer and stuff like that, started with running. I didn't lift weights really that often. I solely ran. And I mean, like, I was the girl that when I went on family vacations, I was up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and I would go run. And then eventually that turned into me wanting to play soccer in college. I did not. But I started looking up workout programs while I was in high school for, colleges that like their weight training programs. And I would just kind of take what I found online and I would take it to the weight room, or the just like the high school weight room. I was the girl asking for the keys to the weight room, like on the weekends and stuff like that. And yeah, but it really came from running. And then I was just like, what's like my next step? And I do remember something that I did, which is crazy to me, is I found like a picture on, I think it was like Pinterest or something like that. And it was of Julian Michaels. And I set her as my wallpaper because I wanted to look like her when I was in like high school. But yeah, that's kind of how it got started. And then I eventually joined Old School Gym, and that's kind of how I really kicked off my fitness journey. I started powerlifting and got into that side of it. So I've kind of witnessed a lot of parts of it.
Old School Gym, I've had Dustin on here a while back, but for the people listening that don't know what Old School Gym is, look them up. I mean, they're known around the world. They're big here, especially for where we grew up. Now they're in, I believe, Granville, and it's a invite-only gym, I believe. But they started out like Arnold's been there. They've had a lot of people there, but Old School, I
Yeah,
feel like helped kind of turn a lot of people to fitness and
definitely.
really amp their fitness goals up.
Yeah. I think the whole mindset and everything that Dustin and Corey bring is also just like amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they have the 5 a. What is it? 5 a.m.
Yeah.
crew,
Yeah.
and I mean they go in there every single day. I've had some people there that have done the 5 a.m. crew, and one of
Yeah.
Mitch Lore's still doing it, and it's just they're crazy, but there's a reason that they're on another level compared to everybody else. But now
Exactly.
you have your own gym at your house, correct?
Yes. Yes, we do.
Which what all the like if anybody follows you on Instagram and stuff, they can see kind of what that gym consists of. But like, what all is that gym? Because you pretty much almost have just about everything you need to get a really good workout in.
Yeah, we do. We have 2 squat racks in there, and then free weights from 5 to 100 pounds. Um, we have a leg extension and curl, a GHD, and then cables as well. So pretty good setup in there.
Do you like the home gym feeling, or do you like going to a gym more and this is just more convenience? Because I know like people, I feel like people have mixed opinions on both. So which do you prefer and why?
Oh, absolutely. So I prefer working out at home now. Um, since I've started my competition prep, I have kind of needed both because, like we had talked about earlier, I think that there are things that a gym brings that obviously having a home gym, and just like walking out into your garage or your basement or something like that, like a gym has things that doesn't have, because if you're working out at home, like for me, you kind of tend to think about all of the things that you're surrounded by, like your laundry or, just things that need done around the house, that you can easily just be like, okay, I'm going to stop my workout right now and, go do those things or whatever else. I think the other side of it is having kids too.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it makes it a lot easier if you have a family, just to like, bring them with you if you need to get your workout in or something like that. But definitely from a motivational aspect, I do like working out in a gym. And throughout my prep, I have actually stepped into a gym more often just to, put myself in a different space.
Well, I was gonna ask too, because you got 3 kids, you're at home with them. How
Yeah.
is that managing, meal prepping and getting ready for a competition and just working out? How do you manage that time? Because I mean, being a mom's a full-time job in itself. So how do you manage that and able to get yourself, a good workout in?
Yeah. So ever since competition prep, I think that has been the hardest switch for me to flip, is between being a competitor and being a mom. For all of the things that the preparation has required of me, um, it's it requires me to get up at absurd hours, like 4 o'clock in the morning, to like fit in like fasted cardio, be able to eat, and then get a lift in, things like that. But it's definitely been a mental switch for me to flip too. It's like, you want to be in the zone, and you're tired, and you're, all these other things, but that can't come first when you have, 3 other lives that, require the most of you. So I think that has hands down been the hardest switch to flip for me, is momming and, a competitor mindset. So
Working out at 4 in the morning, is that obviously that's, it's not easy to do, especially consistently. People can do it. I mean, I've done it, for a week or so, going in at 5 a.m. and working out, but then it's really easy to fall off. But working out in the morning, do you find more fulfillment working out in the morning versus an afternoon or an evening lift?
I do, just because I think that once it's out of the way for me, if I don't work out in the morning, it'll stress me out all day. You know what I mean? Like, there's just like that thing like weighing on me that I have to do, and I know I have to do it. And until it's done, I'm going to be stressed out. So I think so, but I do enjoy being able to have like a decent amount of water and food in me before lifting. So that is the benefit to lifting in the afternoon in evening times.
What are the pros and cons, I guess, to, versus, having nothing before going into a workout if you're working out first thing in the morning versus working out in, the afternoon/evening, and actually having, fuel, I want to call it fuel, to go into your workout? Is there pros to both, or is one better than the other?
I don't honestly think that either way is, better or worse. I just think that from a strength point of view, if you're able to, I think that having, a decent amount of carbs, a little bit of protein in you before you can lift, I think that's better if you can time it out that way. For me, with prep and having to do fasted cardio, what I would do is I would do my fasted cardio and then eat, maybe let like an hour or so pass, and then lift. And that's only having like one meal, which is totally fine. Not everybody has time, to like lift in the middle of the day or even in the evening. But then you have people like Reno typically wakes up and just uses pre-workout and works out fasted. So I think that there's either way you do it. It's like, if you're just waking up and working out, you don't really give your body enough time to even realize you haven't had food. So it's like, you're just drinking water and taking your pre-workout and getting after it. So yeah, I don't think that there's either way is like, oh my God, you shouldn't work out fasted, or
Can you explain what fasted cardio means? Like, what is your fasted cardio consist of? I have an idea, but I'm just, you're gonna have a more in-depth answer compared to like what I know. So I'm curious to what exactly that means.
So for just every day. Okay, so I don't think fasted cardio is superior in any way other than when you're competing. So like say like you wake up tomorrow, you don't eat breakfast, you don't consume any calories that's food or drinking. So no coffee, creamer, nothing like that. Completely fasted. So you eat dinner, you wake up in the morning, you have your water, and get on the treadmill. For me, it's been steady state cardio. So like just getting your heart rate up, and continuing that for like 30 to 40 minutes. During competitions, sometimes you can bring other supplements into it, and it helps you get your heart rate up faster and kind of almost accelerates fat loss. So I did use, it's called Yohimbine HCl, and combined that with caffeine pills. So that kind of speeds things up if you're in a competitive type situation. But yeah, so that's the extent of my fasted cardio.
So you do that in the morning, and then you'll eat, and then take like an hour break, and then lift.
Yep.
So what's
Yeah.
the reason, kind of guess, behind the hour break that you take?
Just from getting, bringing your heart rate back down to a normal level, being able to consume some calories so that you have enough energy to put into a lift.
So is it necessarily, I guess, I don't know, is it a bad thing to, because I know people that they'll work out and then run on the treadmill or get on the elliptical bike, whatever it is, or vice versa. Is that a no-no, or is it still okay, but it's just not what you necessarily do?
Oh, that's absolutely still okay. Actually, I prefer it that way just because if you can put all of what you have into your lifts, that's awesome. And then do your cardio after. And that way, like I said, you're putting all of your strength and everything that you have into that lift versus doing your cardio, being, super burnout and then trying to lift. It's funny how
But
like
you're
the competing aspect of it like kind of just flips everything. Like that it doesn't really matter in those senses, but I have always done you lift and then you do your cardio.
That's what I've always done, and
Yeah.
I know somewhat of what I'm doing. I played college football and stuff, so like I have an idea, but I'd never like really researched it and everything. So like some of these things I'm asking are like me personally wanting to know because it's things that I've always done. I just didn't know if it was exactly the right thing, like if you're getting the most out of it per se. But it's some of these questions that I'm going to ask definitely are more me questions, but I'm guarantee that other people are thinking the exact same thing.
Probably.
But you're like we've mentioned you're getting ready to compete. Your competition's April 1st, correct?
Correct. Yes. 9 days.
Unfortunately, this episode will come out after you compete, but it'll either be I haven't looked exactly. It'll either be the couple days after or the following week after that. But so the results will already be known by then. But
Yeah.
you're gonna compete. Kind of, there's different categories you can compete in, or I guess they call them categories. I don't know exactly what the term for it is, but
Mhm.
what are those categories and which one are you doing?
Yeah. So the categories are bikini, wellness, and figure. And I'm doing bikini. So that's a little bit less muscle mass as far as legs and shoulders go. Um, it's just more of like a beach body look.
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask like kind of what's the difference between the three?
I don't honestly, that's a really good question. Um, I know that for like figure, you have to have like more leg definition, and like I said, muscle mass. And I want to say that wellness is the same. You kind of have that like broader shoulder look, the wide lats, glute definition plays a role. So I wish I had a clear answer for you on that, but I do not.
That's all right. Preparation for these definitely I feel like takes a while. So when did your prep truly start for this? I mean, obviously like the fitness has been there for a while, but when does the prep for a competition, like you decide I'm going to do this one, when does it start?
So I started in October. I started October 23rd, I believe. And you can kind of start whenever you want. You can literally say like I want to do a show in like 3 months, or I think it's just kind of in a sense better if you know in advance like that you want to do a specific show and then you give yourself time, because then the changes aren't so drastic, they're gradual. So you're not like going from like doing your own meal plan to cutting down to whatever your coach is telling you to cut down to. So I think that the time I gave myself was definitely appropriate. Like, I started with my coach in May of last year, and we kind of worked together. I didn't really have a plan, and then he had mentioned a show, and I was like, that sounds like, appropriate timing for me. And then we started from there.
And then that allows you to almost, get into it almost in phases instead of
Mhm.
jumping into it all at once like you talked about. You don't have to make those drastic changes so quickly, which can be really hard and almost, I feel like, maybe harder on the body especially too.
100%. Yes. Yeah. And I think that the entire process in general is very hard on your body regardless. And I think that you so blindly just commit to this because it's something you see all of these other competitors doing it, and you don't really put two and two together of all the things that go behind, that go on behind the scenes and what it actually takes to bring a great physique to show date.
Well, yeah, it's similar. Like we both went through it with sports, where like they don't, not everybody sees, you waking up at 6 a.m. on the beach to go run and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Like people don't see the behind the scenes. They just see you on competition day, like the day of whatever it is, and think, oh, like it's just natural, it's easy. Like no,
Hmm.
it takes a lot of work, and like you said, like back from October, like it takes a lot of time to truly get to the end goal. And that's like a big thing too with just anything in life. Like if you want this goal, you have this thing that you are setting out to achieve, it's not going to happen overnight. You can't expect it to happen overnight. And if it
Yep.
does happen overnight, it's not usually the biggest, you're not getting the most out of it at that point. So I feel like taking it, being able to work into it in phases definitely can help in everything, no matter what the goal is that you're going after.
Right. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is habits don't get formed over, you know, a week or even 2 weeks. They get formed over a decade. It's been, like you said, from sports and things like that, you build all of these habits over time. And, that's what makes you be able to do things like this.
Speaking of sports and kind of going off that, did you have a struggle to find like more of the consistency and the discipline after sports? Because that was one of the things that I struggled with, and I know a lot of other athletes especially struggle with. Because like in high school and college, you're being told like you have to work out at this time or you have to get this workout in today. Did you struggle with that? And if you did, kind of how did you manage and kind of push past that? Like, was there a factor that really played into it, or what was it?
Honestly, I did not struggle with that. I kind of kept myself. I mean, I pretty much immediately joined the Y with my family when I was in high school. So I was like doing the classes at the Y. And then actually, it was my Y instructor, Haley Williams. I'm not sure if you know who she is. She worked out at Old School. And that's actually why I went to Old School and started working out. But I really kind of kept myself busy and in shape for the most part. But I did struggle with my fitness journey in the sense of there was there was nothing for me to be competitive with. So I think that's where this came into play, big time for me.
Yeah, every athlete misses that competition once it's over. And,
Yeah.
I think one of the big things too that you did, I think that really like the reason you didn't have that issue that we just talked about is you, like you said, you kind of just immediately kept up, like you kept yourself busy. That
Hmm.
was probably what a lot of athletes, it's the same one I made, mistakes that they make is, after, especially after 4 years or whatever, they kind of want to break from all that all that working out and everything, and that break turns it from a week or a day or a couple days
Yeah.
into a month, into a year, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, man, where did it like, what happened?" But, keeping yourself busy and just staying after it really will help kind of just keep that discipline. You never necessarily lose that discipline, and that's, like, the
Mm-hmm.
same thing, like, after once you get into that routine and, you build those habits, you can it's not you're not saying you can't take a day off, but you can't
Right.
go make that day turn into 2 and that 2 days turn into a week. You kinda have to continue to, push past that, I feel like.
Absolutely. I think that I think that there's a time that eventually I did have a hard time, and that was after Reno and I had our first Rowan, where I lost sight of fitness, I think big time, for probably about like almost a year. And I put on some weight and I stopped lifting, and Reno did as well. So uh we there's pictures that we look back on and we're like, what were we doing? What were we doing? But
It is
I
always
think,
crazy to look at Reno's transformation from being a
yeah.
college lineman to who he is now.
Yep, I know. We had our son and we lived in this apartment that was like 600 square feet, and we pretty much did nothing but like drink wine and like binge watch TV shows. Like it was absurd. To look at who we are now and like what we did for like those 6 months, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I kinda wanted to ask about the drinking because, like, in fitness, maybe not in competition, but, like, in fitness in
Mhm.
general, some people say, you have to cut drinking out completely. Is that true, or can you still implement that as long as you control it?
I think as long as it's controlled, it's definitely, you have to be able to find that balance. And like you said, it's something that has to be controlled. I think that it's hard, and this, comes with our clients and stuff too. You can't have these goals and expect to be able to keep your same habits. You know what I mean? So if you're drinking, 5 times a week or 3 times a week, maybe cutting back on that and making it like something special, like on the weekends or something like that. I definitely think that it still has its place, and that you can find that balance and still be able, to go out and have drinks and go to concerts and do stuff like that. I think that you have to make that a part of your life, especially if it's like you said, maybe there's not room for it in competition and stuff like that, but everyday life,
Mhm.
absolutely.
But yeah, and just because, you cut it back to, one of the things that I have made the mistake of in my past, where you cut back, maybe you don't drink during the week and you do and just enjoy it on the weekend. That doesn't mean you can binge drink though.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
still have to control it on the weekends. It doesn't
Yes.
mean you can and I kind of wanted to go into it because it's something Reno's talked about, and I know you're into it as well with it's not a cheat day, it's a cheat
Hmm.
meal. So
Yep.
kind of go in on that too, on your opinions of cheat meals and how people kind of take advantage of them sometimes, and like what does a cheat meal exactly mean?
So in my opinion, I think a cheat meal would, in my perspective on this has changed as of recently. So I think that there's room for what are called like refeed days. And that's where you're able to consume extra carbs and fats. And that's kind of what I've been doing for almost a year. That's what my coach has had me doing. And I personally think that that's the most sustainable way if you have like, big goals. And, but things outside of that, there are those times when, you're getting invited to dinner or you're getting invited to go out. And I think that's where it comes into, like I said earlier, you have to have that balance. And there's, times to say no and there's times to say yes. But if you want to go out and it's like spur of the moment, I think that you should absolutely do that. I think that, that's part of life, and life's too short. You should be able to, go out and enjoy yourself and enjoy your family and, celebrations and stuff like that. But I think it's when it becomes, like you had said, like an every weekend, like a binging, and like, when you drink, you want to eat after or during. And you're, if you're binge drinking, then more than likely you're like ending up at like Taco Bell or McDonald's or something like that, and you're just consuming all these calories. So like I said, there's nothing wrong with having that every once in a while and even doing that every once in a while. But when it turns into, like you said, like a every weekend thing, that's, I think, when it becomes a problem.
And
Maybe
you've
not a
even
problem.
well, it depends on which way you want to look at it, I
Yeah.
guess. But
Yeah.
what's up, everybody? I hope you're enjoying today's guest. A lot of people ask me how they can support the Roughnecks podcast. So I wanted to take a quick break to tell you the best way to support the podcast is to buy and wear merch. We have merch available on our website, from hats, t-shirts, long sleeves, sweatshirts, and even coffee cups. There are even youth sizes available for the kids. Head over to roughneckspodcast.com and make your purchase today. Thank you for all the support, but let's get back to today's guest. You've even posted, I believe, I don't remember if it was on your Instagram or in that Facebook group, the with the fitness, and there is good things you can get at so-called fast food restaurants that are
Mhm.
still maybe not the best thing to eat, but there's still good options available.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that anytime you can obviously prepare your food yourself, that's the best option. But, that's not life. And
Mhm.
sometimes when you're out and in a pinch and need something, and that's kind of why I put those guides on there, for our clients, and obviously anybody else can join that Facebook page. But that's probably one of the biggest questions I get is, well, can I still eat out? And yeah, absolutely, you can still eat out.
Like, especially like it being a family and being a mom of three, like you're gonna run into that where
Mhm.
whether you're at the ball fields or something, like, and you need to get something, like you don't always have time necessarily. Like a lot of people n- say they don't have time, which is a sticky situation because
Yeah.
there's always time, but it's maybe you didn't have time at that moment to prep your meals for the week or prep some snacks or you weren't expecting to be at the baseball field that long of a day because they won
Yeah.
way more games than you were expecting. Things happen, and that is called life, and you still have to you can control, like like we talked, there's a balance between it, and especially if you do good like the whole week, especially,
Mhm.
it's okay to splurge, I guess you want to call it, once
Yep.
every once in a while, like we've talked about.
Yep, absolutely.
But you meal prep yours, like all of your meals. How long does it take you to do you prep for the whole week?
I try to. We usually have stuff just on hand, and I pick simple things to have prepped. So like things like rice cakes and rice, and even just like frozen vegetables that you can throw in the microwave and weigh out yourself. But we usually do like one big prep a week for, Reno and myself, and then um kind of just go from there. Whatever we need to do, we just do throughout the week. But I will say, just like with prepping like chicken and stuff like that, I don't like prepping an entire week's worth of stuff, just because after sitting in the fridge for so long and then like reheating it. But if I have to, I will, absolutely. But
It's like leftovers. Leftovers are usually only good for about a day, maybe two, and
yes.
then it's time to put them in the trash.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, we try to stay, just keep it simple, honestly, especially with kids and stuff, like just easiest that way.
I feel like people kind of get turned away from the meal prepping and healthy eating or whatever you want to call it because of the money factor. I think a lot of people think it costs more it's more expensive than, which kind of sometimes is true. You can go to McDonald's and get a McChicken for like $1 but
True.
is it more expensive? Like, is it cost efficient? Like, is it more expensive, or is it kind of still worth it even if it is more expensive?
I think that if you're doing it properly, like I said, if you're, you know, we don't use anything crazy. Like we buy Kroger brand microwave vegetables. Obviously meat and eggs and everything right now is expensive. But aside from that, regardless, I think that it's worth it. Even if you do have to spend a little bit of extra money to have like some chickpea pasta versus like regular pasta, stuff like that. Those are things that I guess at this point it's just one of those things that's like not negotiable. Like we will spend the money to eat well, if that makes sense. But you definitely you don't have to do anything fancy. Like doesn't have to be, the fancy meal prepped meals that you see on like Pinterest or anywhere else. Like, you just keep it simple.
How do you find the right meal plan? Because obviously, I think this kind of changes from person to person, but you can get online and find a million different meal plans that are the perfect thing to follow, and you're going to lose 20 pounds if you just
Mhm.
eat this for a week, whatever. Like it's the
Yeah.
magic pill. But how do you find the right meal plan? And how do you know? I guess if some are bad versus good. Like, is there a way to tell?
I think that first of all, I think that the most sustainable way, if you're looking to gain muscle, lose fat, to do anything is to track macros. I know that there is kind of like there's two sides, which this can be with everything too. Some people say that tracking macros is obsessive and it's tedious, and it's very tedious, I think. But everyone has a set amount of macros that, will help you either like maintain, gain, or lose. So I think one, finding your macro ranges, that's the best way. And then that allows you to fit food into your diet as best as possible. So that gives you the flexibility to, make some cookies fit if you really want to have cookies, to make the rice fit and, the protein that you consume. So like you can see those meals on Pinterest or Facebook or whatever of chicken, rice, and avocado with, beans and all the other things. But, by measuring out, that's the only way you're going to know if you're, staying within your ranges. Like you can't just take somebody else's meal plan and expect results because everybody's different. So
And is that the same, would you say, like with a workout plan as well?
in a way, I guess I think that the workout plan, that's definitely person dependent too, depending on goals. So like competition wise, that's going to look different. Um, if you need to so I'm going to use myself for an example. My glutes needed to come in tighter. So I was training glutes at one point 2 to 3 times a week. Obviously the average person doesn't need to train glutes, 2 to 3 times a week. And so I think that that's pretty person dependent too. But for the average person wanting to, lose weight, I think finding a good sustainable program is perfectly fine.
How do you, because I mean, you train, or you coach you coach, train, I don't know the right word
Yeah.
to say this, but you train people. Are you doing that out of your garage?
I am. Yes. Yep.
So you're training people out of your home. How do you kind of, obviously you ask the people depending on what their goal is, but say,
Mhm.
somebody came to you and they're like, I just want to lose weight. What kind of workout plan would you kind of push them towards?
I usually always ask, you know, obviously what their goals are and things like that. I think that it's funny because women have a very specific, and I can always I kind of like tell. I already know before they say it, is that they all want a nice butt and they want a toned stomach. So I think just getting them to lift weights in general um is like just the biggest thing. But I always program, at least with my clients recently, I do program 2 leg days, and then the rest is like kind of a back and bicep day, chest and tris, shoulders and core. And that's, say someone can get into the gym 5 days. If not, I do split it up to push, pull, and legs. So that way you're kind of hitting everything within those 3 workouts.
What would you say is an average like an average times a week for people to work out, and like, or what is a good average or like a good amount of times you think a week to work out?
Definitely weight training at least 2 to 3 times a week. And then
what about cardio?
Cardio, yes. I think that that's also very person dependent. I think just moving in general, anywhere from like 20 to 30 minutes, also 3 times a week, maybe like right after those lifts, is very important, just to get, even if it's not like something that's super like intense, and it can just be something like steady state, like walking on the treadmill or walking your dog, just getting in that extra activity. I also think that people overcomplicate it by thinking that it has to be something it doesn't, thinking that it has to be like, oh, I can't, go all out, so I'm just not gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy to to get results. And I think that most of the time I've had clients in the past ask me, well, is 3 days going to be enough? And when you're going from working out, not even having a workout routine, to incorporating one, it's best to start out, slow like that. Make sure that you can, get your sleep, make sure that you can get your workouts in, make sure, that you're drinking your water, and see those results, and let that motivate you to add a 4th day. You know what I mean? So anything that, when you're going from 0 to like 100, that's what makes it, not so sustainable, is, you're overwhelming your body, you're overwhelming yourself. But once you slowly start, taking care of your body a little bit at a time, and you see those results, that brings motivation, and you're going to want to keep doing it, and you're going to want to do it more.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to go too, is like, you don't have to overcomplicate it. Like you said, sometimes it's just walking your dog around the neighborhood or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, especially the people, like, for you to say you don't have time, how much time do you spend on Instagram a night? When
Yep.
you don't have to have a treadmill in your basement. You don't have to have a gym membership to be active. You can go walk around the neighborhood. If you don't live in a neighborhood, I'm sure you could drive. There's places like Watkins where you can go get on the track, or Evans and Hebron that you can just go walk around those baseball fields. Like, there's plenty of places, and I'm sure like it's available. And one of the things, like, I've looked at, like, my boss has really freaking, his calves are like stupid, and he doesn't really work out that often, like hardly ever. And he's like, I've always had this, but he's like, the one thing I can always think of what it is though is like walking through the woods with my dad hunting, and that kind of like just like little things. It doesn't take much. You don't and like you said, start out when you don't have to go from 0 to hero. And that's a lot of times, you may last a week, you may last 2. That was what happened to me, is when I got back into it not too long ago, I had to work out 5 times a week, and these had to be these vigorous workouts, and then I had to run this many times a week. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm just tired of doing this already. It's because you overwhelm yourself. You have to just, you don't have to go 0 to hero. Take your time, work your way into it. And like you said, when you start to see those results, that's just what's going to motivate you to want to do but also you cannot expect drastic results immediately. That's we've already talked about this. That's not how it
Yeah.
works. It takes time for things like that to happen.
It does. Yeah, it really does. But we all do
But
it. We all like want those results right now.
you live in this instantaneous instantaneous satisfaction world where, like, if you're on Instagram or and you go up to the top, you refresh, guess what happens? You get new posts. You're on
Yep.
TikTok, you never hardly ever see the same video twice. You might see the same
Yeah.
sound, but you don't see the same video. And I mean, that's a scary thing about today's world is our phones and tablets and computers can slowly start to distract us from the real world and the real aspects of life and what is important. And sometimes, you know what, if you want to scroll through Instagram, guess what, you can do it while you're walking too. Like when you're going
Exactly.
around the neighborhood, you can sit there and scroll. You know, one of the things that I always do when I run, I listen to podcasts, which is I love to do, and that kind of stuff. And it's you can get those things in while you're doing something active.
That's actually something that I've recently given myself like a rule is when I do my cardio, that's when I allow myself to scroll is, on TikTok and on Instagram. But outside of that, I've definitely limited my scrolling when I'm just like sitting down eating or like, laying in bed at night. Like you just got to put it down.
It can almost, I feel like, help distract you from what you're really doing too. If you're scrolling through Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is while you're walking on a treadmill or walking around the
Yeah.
neighborhood, you kind of lose track. Like, oh man, I've already gone a mile. Like, I didn't even feel
hmm
like it was long. It can almost help, which I hate to say that, but it can help.
Yep. I agree. I agree.
But you see, you walked away from your job to start full-time training people. Kind of take
Mhm.
me through that decision of, doing that.
Well, so I think with each kid, we I kind of dropped it down. So like I started out at full time and then we had our daughter and then I went to part time. And obviously with those part time and contingent positions, you still have, like a call schedule to uphold to and, certain hours that you have to have in a month or a week. And to an extent, it just kind of became not worth it. And Reno and I kind of just made the decision, like what exactly is best for us as a family, for, our business. And I kind of just decided that it was time to let go of that for a little bit. And that's not me saying I'm never going to go back and do it. But the one thing I've always said is I surprisingly really love my job. I've always loved being a surgical tech. And in that, in that field. So I did choose to walk away from it, but
But do you I mean, it's almost one of those too. I feel like, do you love training people as well?
I do. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
kind of almost still gotta win on the other side, even though it may not be like you said, you still might end up, you're probably gonna end up eventually back there. But
Yeah.
for the time being, and like you do have to weigh out those decisions. That's what I like. You and Reno talked about what's best for the family. That's one of the
hmm
big things that I think people forget sometimes. It's like, if you're going to start a side hustle or whatever, and people are like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and do this. It's like, and we're not, a lot of people kind of like, oh, you're just trying to tell me not to do it. No. I just want you to think. Like, I really
Yeah.
want you to like, man, it, like, understand, is this the best thing? And,
hmm
it is a very big decision to make in certain situations. And you do have to, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that, like, don't quit your day job until like the thing you want to do is paying, like, can at least cover your bills. Like, that's the most important thing. And you and Reno, obviously there's two incomes there, so it's
Yeah.
different, a little bit different. But being able to cover the bills, and you just have to truly look at, is this best for our family? Like, what can work? And it like you talked to, it allows you to stay at home with the kids and
hmm
manage. Reno has less of that to worry about in the mornings and that kind of stuff. So it kind of gives you a good balance as well.
Yes, absolutely. It kind of just like cut the string for me. Like I don't, not saying I have like no responsibilities. I obviously have many responsibilities, but it just kind of like took one out of the equation for me. Like I don't have to worry about like, oh, I have to hit these hours for this month to uphold my contingency status or, something like that. So it kind of just like cut me loose in a way and gave us like a little bit more freedom as a family and, stuff like that. So it was a good decision. It's a weird decision. Like I still feel weird about it, but it was the best decision. So
And I feel like, you didn't exactly say it, but like it takes those stresses out, and taking those stresses away sometimes is more like it's better for the family or better for you and your significant other or better for yourself in a way because it helps you being stressed and like especially with fitness and that kind of stuff. It'll
mhm.
being stressed about one thing, being stressed about your job, it'll start to weigh on every other relationship or every other aspect of your life if you allow it to kind of overtake it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
But you and Reno have RB Performance, correct? That's what it's
Yes.
called.
Yeah.
And you guys even have a Facebook page, which I really like. It's you guys kind of talk about starting that Facebook page, especially and what it is and kind of how it can help people, I guess.
Yeah. So we created the Facebook page just so that we can reach more of not only our clients, but those who are interested, and even those who are interested in training with us and maybe don't have the finances or I guess the time to put into a fitness program or something like that at the moment. They can still join that page and get the content that we put out there. Like you said, there's like those little fast food tips, why we choose macro counting, why I track macros, macro tracking tips, stuff like that. So we use that page just as more of like, like motivation and like I said, those people that train with us and who are interested in training with us, just to like kind of give them an idea um, on the things that we do and why we do them, but also it allows our clients to post in that page. So anything that they do, if they have like a recipe or a win or something like that, we did just get it started, so it's like not as up and it's up and coming. We're making changes and trying to get ideas, and we do ask our clients like what do you need from us, what do you want to see from us, stuff like that, when it comes to posting stuff in there. So a lot of those ideas that are posted in there are fueled from clients and our questions and their questions.
That's That's big though in a business sense, especially because you look at that. I mean, your clients are number one. Like that is your
Hmm.
business. That is what keeps you going. So getting that feedback from the people actually doing it of what they want, and then
Hmm.
doing it instead of just trying to be like, oh, this is what I think we should do, and like, I writing if a marketing company writes a blog post for somebody but they are not actually in the company, they don't know about the industry as much, getting ideas from the people in the industry can
Yes,
help immensely, or having somebody who actually does it, that those kind of things, getting the actual feedback of the industry of the clients can help everything.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's something that we ask weekly in our check-in forms. At the end of every week, usually on Sundays, we have our clients fill out a check-in form. And at the very bottom, that's the very last thing is what can we do to be more help to you? So we heavily
That
rely on that.
I like that, a check-in form. I've bounced around that idea of myself with the podcast, especially like just sending out a kind of a survey, and I'll make it
Hmm.
anonymous. So like I want people to be brutally honest of like to guests, and even have one maybe for the listeners. But like, hey, like what do you like about the podcast? What do you not like? Like what should I do? Those kind of things, because that like we talked about, getting the customer feedback is gonna make you better as a boss, client, or trainer, whatever it is, the industry you're in, and it'll just help propel your business, I feel like.
Yes. Yeah. It does.
Kind of going back to the workouts side of things real quick before I kind of go into these final segments, but you know, is working out two times a day a bad thing?
Mm. I guess it depends on what the rest of your week looks like and how you're structuring those two workouts and what they consist of. I think that if you're doing, say you lift in the morning and then you're doing like a hit circuit at night for like 5 rounds, I wouldn't consider that, the most terrible thing. I don't think that more is better in that sense. So if you're trying to like really put on, muscle I guess there's just a lot of things that go into it. I guess it would be like very person dependent. If you're trying to like put on a large amount of muscle and you're working out 2 times a week, you're tearing your body, or 2 times a day, you're tearing your body down over and over again for X amount of days, and you're really probably doing more harm than good. So I want to go ahead and say my final answer would be, I don't think you should work out 2 times a day, but it depends.
How important is rest in fitness?
Highly important. So I think this is something that, again, I've learned a lot about myself and fitness in general through just like myself and competing. But as a competitor now, I think, so my training days actually dropped down. So I was like one of those people that was 5 times a week working out, getting on the treadmill for like 20 minutes. Now, since, yes, I've had high amounts of cardio, but my training has dropped down to 3 days a week, and my cardio is at 25 minutes, obviously for like 5 to 6 days a week. But getting that rest and letting your body recover is so much more important than adding another training day. So like when people aren't seeing results and they start adding training days and they start adding cardio, sometimes that's not always the best decision, because if you're not giving your body rest and, like we talked about earlier, fueling your body properly and sleeping good, then you're going down a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be, and mentally, I feel like it is big too, because not seeing the results mentally, it can hurt, like damage you, I guess, and and then if you try to up that, you're physically damaging yourself. So you're getting the double whammy if you don't take into account, because you really do need rest. And whether that's honestly just taking a day off from the gym, or sleep is another important one that I think people kind of forget about in a way. They think, oh, like, oh, I know I got to be at the gym at 4 a.m. Like, I really got to be there. But I'm staying up till 2 in the morning watching a movie or scrolling through TikTok, whatever it might be, or life happens and you're up late. But sleep is very important also. And, what would you say is the good amount of sleep to have? I know this is a very debatable topic, and you need your 8 hours. I know you only really need 6, whatever it is. What would you like? What is your typical, I guess, how much sleep do you typically get?
Yeah, so like you said, very debatable topic, but around that 6 to 8 hour mark is definitely where I fall. Sometimes, obviously being a parent, less than that, but definitely always pushing for that like 7 hours at least.
I feel like that's especially like, I don't know, me personally, like between that 6 and 7 is when I feel the best. And it's usually, if I go over 8 is when I'm like, I feel more tired the next day than if I were to only get 4. Now I can't, you shouldn't consistently get 4 hours of sleep or whatever, but that I would definitely get tired from that. But that 6 to 7 hour range, I feel like, is where you wake up with the kind of the most energy. And I don't know I don't know the science behind why, or if that's even the correct way. But for me personally, 6 to 7 hours, it definitely makes a difference.
Oh, I agree. I'm with you on that.
But we're going to move into some of these final segments of the podcast. And I do have a question that I like to ask all of my guests. And it is, if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Oh man. I think if I could go back and tell my 16-year-old self something, I would tell her not to care what other people think so much and to show up as I am and who I am and be confident and realize that I think that when you're in high school, you get so hung up on like trying to either like downplay yourself or, try to be like fit into a certain crowd, and it's hard to see the outside of it now, like being 27 and a mom. You're just like, why did I care so much at 16 about what that guy said to me, or like how that girl looked at me, or stuff like that. So I think that if I could go back, I would tell myself not to care so much.
And if you're 16 and listening, we understand why you are saying whatever to this, because we probably would have done the same thing if somebody would have told us. But it's true. Like when we're that age, we try, and especially in high school, you're trying to either, like you said, downgrade yourself or impress people.
Mhm.
But you're doing this with people that 99% of them you will probably never talk to again in your life, or
Right.
never even see again in your life. And that's the thing
Exactly.
that a lot of people forget about, is these aren't your forever friends. Like, yeah, you may still keep in contact with some of them, but they're not your people that like. And now, like, if you come across somebody that you went to high school with, you're not as worried as you were when you were 16 about, oh man, I'm only wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt. Like I look like a bum. Like
Yeah.
like you don't care. You're like, this is who I am. Like I
Yep.
really don't care. With you know, that comes with age. You get better at it. And but it is true. Like you don't need to care what people think about you. Be yourself.
No.
Is just be who you are. And if people don't like you, then you're doing yourself a favor, because trust me, it's going to work out better for you in the end.
Yes. Absolutely.
But this moves us into the best part of the podcast, which is Motivation Monday. Motivation Monday is the point in the episode where I allow the guests to give the Roughnecks listeners a little inspirational bump to set the tone for their week as they listen on Monday morning. So what do you got from Motivation Monday?
I think it's going to sound very cliche, but what you believe you can achieve and accomplish comes from your mindset. You can absolutely build something from nothing, and don't put a ceiling on things that you can't achieve.
Cliche sayings are my favorite sayings on this podcast, because the more you hear them, the more you do kind of like it starts to change your mindset, like you just talked about. It starts to instill in your mind, and it's just kind of like a habit. You have to do things over and over again. You have to hear things over and over again before it finally, there's going to come that one point that it does resonate with you and you're like, holy crap, like I get it now. Like, and
Yeah.
it could have been said the exact same way, or maybe it was just said a touch differently that you were like, man, that's really good. But not putting a ceiling on things is good. I really like that, because I feel like a lot of people, they set this goal and they accomplish it and they're like, all right, I'm done. Like I don't
Yep.
have to worry about it anymore. I'm good. And you'll see that in fitness, where people start to get to that comfort zone essentially, and no growth happens in a comfort zone. You literally stay the same or you get worse. You
Yep.
cannot continue to stay comfortable. That's kind of going outside of that comfort zone is going, like, taking that ceiling a step higher than what it already is.
Yep. These are actually notes that I had in my phone, and these are quotes that I would repeat in my mind as I'm doing cardio, and literally wanting to like cry because I've been on the treadmill for like an hour, and I'm like, you can't put a ceiling on this. Like you can't, like, it's either up from here or we're not pushing the level down. We're not staying where we're at. We're moving up. So these are things that I repeated in my head. I still repeat in my head.
Oh, I'm the same type of person. I'm one that like loves listening to motivational type stuff and reading it, and like David Goggins and those type of people. Like, man, Goggins will just change your whole world. It's crazy what his mindset is. But that's the big thing with Goggins too, is mindset. It's all about your mindset, and like it's literally on you to change your mindset. Nobody else can change your mindset for you. You have to change it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's like one of the things too that has just this competing journey in general has completely flipped the way I think about everything for the better. Just like being able to just keep pushing and pushing to a mental point that, you know, just makes you unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, we always hear it. You have more in you than like your mind shuts down before your body does. So whether you're trying to do a max bench press or whatever, or you're running, your mind's gonna tell you we're done, I quit, before you can really truly be done. And
Yep.
that's another Goggins things that he talks about, and those kind of things is it's whenever you think you don't have it, if you just tell yourself like, hey, this isn't the ceiling, like you talked about, it might help you give that extra 10% that you didn't know you had in you, and it might help push you past that ceiling.
Exactly. Yep. Your mind, if you think I always say, like, if you think you're gonna quit, then you're gonna quit. But if you think you still have it in you, then you'll have it in you. Your mind is a powerful thing.
I mean, I've heard people talking about they were out in the yard throwing the softball for their daughter, and she was kind of in a hitting slump, and he's like telling her some tips and tricks, and she's like, I just can't do it. And he finally looked at her and was like, I'm gonna give you permission to say this one time, but tell yourself I'm gonna hit the damn ball. And she was like, I'm not allowed to say that. He's like, then bleep it out. I don't care. Say that, like, tell yourself you're gonna hit the ball. And she was like, I'm gonna hit the ball. And he's like, the next one I threw at her, she freaking hit out of the backyard. And it's like, it's your mindset. It's all about telling yourself,
Yes.
I got this. I can do this. And it can change your whole outcome.
It can. It really can.
And even if you don't get there, and if you maybe don't succeed at that, don't get down on yourself. Just tell yourself, you know what? I truly did give it everything I had, because that will, if you start to get down on yourself, then you're just going right back to that mindset. You have to continue to, have that kind of positive outlook on it.
Yep. You literally just have to keep showing up.
Keep showing up. I like that. And with that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Roughnecks podcast. Thank you so much, Brittnee, for coming on. I want to wish you luck in your upcoming competition, even though this episode will be out after the fact. But where can people find and follow you on social media?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Brittnee9 or Facebook, Brittnee Stapleton.
Definitely go follow. You will not regret following. Especially if you're into fitness, you're going to get a lot of tips and tricks that I even take away from them. So definitely go follow her. Those links will be in the description, or you can just go search for her yourself. A couple quick announcements real quick before we sign off. Newsletter comes out the first of every month. Be sure to sign up for that. You can sign up for that on the website. There is very big announcements coming soon. Also, be sure to send in your Q&A Friday questions. Send those questions about anything and everything, where me and a guest will sit down and answer your questions. You can send those questions over to roughneckspodcast@gmail.com. But that is all we have for today's episode of the Roughnecks podcast. So until Friday, where we will hear from Brittnee's other half with another episode of Reno's Rants, you guys know the deal. Life is hard, and it's going to knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let that bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. If you liked today's episode, then please be sure to share it with a friend. You can follow the Roughnecks Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Roughnecks Podcast. Head over to roughneckspodcast.com and grab yourself some Roughnecks merch. Until next time, make sure you grab the bull by the horns and take control of your life. Roughnecks